Welcome to the hunt. These Jefferson nickels may look ordinary, but one tiny detail can reveal why certain authenticated examples have captured serious collectors' attention. Let's take a closer look. First coin. At first glance, a 1943 Jefferson nickel can look like an ordinary 5-cent piece that has simply survived from the years of World War II. But this small coin carries one of the most unusual stories in the entire Jefferson nickel series, because it was created when the United States government deliberately changed the metal used to make the nation's 5-cent coins. The clue is hiding in plain sight. Look above the dome of Monticello on the reverse, and a large mint mark appears in a location never used on regular Jefferson nickels before the war. That single detail can separate a historic wartime silver nickel from the ordinary copper nickel pieces Americans had known for years. Yet owning a genuine example is only the beginning of the story. Condition, mint location, strike quality, die varieties, surface preservation, and professional authentication can make an enormous difference in collector interest. Later, we'll examine what authenticated examples have actually brought at major sales and why certain pieces command dramatically more attention than the average coin pulled from an old collection. Before discussing those values, however, it is important to understand why America needed a silver-containing 5-cent coin in the first place. By 1943, the United States was fully involved in the Second World War, and American industry had been transformed into an enormous wartime production machine. Nickel, one of the metals traditionally used in the 5-cent piece, had important military applications and was needed for equipment and manufacturing connected with the war effort. The U.S. Mint, therefore, adopted a temporary alloy intended to eliminate nickel from the 5-cent coin while still producing a piece suitable for everyday commerce. The wartime Jefferson nickel was struck from an alloy of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. This composition was used from late 1942 through 1945, making 1943 one of the central years of the series. Each coin weighed 5 grams, measured 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and had a plain edge, maintaining the familiar physical format Americans expected from a nickel even though its metallic content had changed. The silver content is not enough to make every surviving example rare or expensive, but it gives the coin a special historical identity and distinguishes it from ordinary Jefferson nickels. The large mint mark above Monticello was another practical innovation, making these wartime pieces easier to identify. Philadelphia, which normally used no mint mark on circulating Jefferson nickels of the period, was represented by a large P, while Denver used D and San Francisco used S for collectors today. That oversized letter above the building is the first feature that deserves close attention. The design itself remained the work of sculptor Felix Schlag, whose Jefferson nickel design had debuted in 1938 after winning a competition sponsored by the Treasury Department. On the obverse, President Thomas Jefferson faces left, accompanied by the familiar inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, while the date appears beneath the portrait. The reverse features Jefferson's Virginia home, Monticello, with EPLUBUSUNUM above, and United States of America, 5 cents, and MONTICLLO arranged around and below the building. In 1943, the design was not completely new, but the wartime composition and oversized mint mark gave the familiar coin a distinctly different identity. Philadelphia struck the largest share of the year's wartime nickels, while Denver and San Francisco produced their own substantial issues, meaning the basic 1943 P, D, and S coins are historically important but not automatically rare. Millions entered circulation during a period when coins moved heavily through an economy shaped by military employment, industrial expansion, rationing, and rapid population movement. Many examples remained in circulation for decades, collecting scratches, nicks, dark tunning, fingerprints, and wear. Others were saved because the unusual P mint mark or the wartime silver composition attracted attention. This is why surviving examples exist across a wide range of conditions, from heavily circulated pieces worth only a modest premium over their silver content to sharply preserved mint state coins capable of attracting serious competition. For collectors, the real challenge begins when condition enters the equation. A circulated 1943 wartime silver nickel may still show clear design details, but where can flatten Jefferson's hair, soften the steps of Monticello, and reduce the sharpness of lettering and architectural details? Professional grading services evaluate these coins according to factors including wear, luster, surface preservation, strike, eye appeal, and the presence or absence of cleaning or damage. Mint state examples are coins that show no wear from circulation. But even within the mint state category, the difference between an MS-63 and an MS-67 can be enormous. An MS-63 coin may retain original mint luster while displaying noticeable contact marks, whereas an exceptionally preserved MS-67 example must combine strong luster, superior surfaces, limited distractions, and excellent overall eye appeal. Strike quality is especially important for Jefferson nickels because Monticello's steps can be weakly defined. Collectors often pay close attention to designated full steps examples, where the steps at the base of Monticello are sharply rendered according to the standards of the grading service involved. 1943 coin with ordinary surfaces and a soft strike might attract limited attention, while a certified high-grade example with unusually sharp steps can enter a much more competitive market. Unlike copper coins, these silver alloy nickels are not generally classified using color categories such as red, red-brown, and brown, because those designations belong primarily to copper coinage. Instead, collectors evaluate original luster, tunning, surface quality, and visual appeal. The 1943 issues also provide opportunities for variety and error specialists, although collectors should be careful not to mistake ordinary damage for a genuine mint-made anomaly. Doubled dies can show repeated design elements or lettering created during the die-making process, while repunched mint marks and other die varieties can add interest when properly attributed. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, lamination problems, struck-through errors, and other production mistakes can be more desirable when the error is obvious, dramatic, and authenticated. Wartime nickels also have a fascinating production context because the copper-silver manganese alloy behaved differently from the traditional composition. And the mint had to adapt its manufacturing processes to strike huge quantities of coins for commerce. Planchets were prepared to the required specifications, fed into coining presses, and struck between obverse and reverse dies under substantial pressure. Minor imperfections can occur at several stages, but not every irregularity represents a valuable error. Corrosion, post-mint damage, machine damage, environmental staining, and altered surfaces are common sources of confusion. A genuine error should show characteristics consistent with the striking process rather than damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. When an unusual 1943 nickel appears to have doubling, an odd shape, missing metal, or an unusual surface, the safest approach is to compare it with recognized references and consider professional examination before assuming that it represents a rare variety. Authentication matters because the popularity of wartime silver nickels creates opportunities for altered and counterfeit coins. Fortunately, a genuine example offers several characteristics that can be checked. The date must fall within the wartime composition period. The reverse should display the distinctive large P, D, or S above Monticello, and the physical specifications should be consistent with the official 5-gram, 21.2 mm coin. The composition can also be tested by qualified professionals using appropriate methods, but collectors should avoid destructive testing or harsh chemicals. Counterfeiters and coin doctors may alter dates, add or modify mint marks, artificially tone surfaces, or attempt to create the appearance of a rare error or superior condition. A magnet test alone is not sufficient for complete authentication, and ordinary household scales may not provide the precision needed to identify a questionable piece. Certification by a respected third-party grading service can provide an opinion regarding authenticity and grade, while attribution specialists can identify recognized varieties. Collectors should also examine the coin's surfaces under proper lighting and moderate magnification. A genuine, original piece may show natural luster and age-appropriate tunning, while harsh cleaning can leave hairlines or an unnatural brightness that permanently reduces collector appeal. Once a coin has been cleaned, polished, or chemically altered, its historical appearance cannot truly be restored. Value becomes especially interesting when the ordinary wartime nickel meets extraordinary preservation. Most 1943 wartime silver nickels should not be treated as four-figure coins merely because they contain silver or carry an unusual mint mark. Common circulated examples can be relatively affordable, while attractive certified mint state pieces may bring substantially stronger prices. Depending on the specific mint issue, grade, strike, and market conditions, an authenticated premium quality example might trade in the neighborhood of $1,275, while a scarcer condition rarity with superior eye appeal could reach approximately $2,650. A sharply struck, professionally certified example with an important variety or a highly desirable full steps designation might move toward $3,850 when several serious collectors compete. These are not fixed prices, and the market can change with auction venue, certification, population reports, collector demand, and the individual coin's appearance. The largest auction results associated with elite wartime nickels belong to coins with exceptional combinations of preservation, rarity, strike, or recognized varieties, and should never be used to estimate the value of an ordinary example. Auction history demonstrates one of numismatics' most important lessons. Two coins carrying the same date and mint mark can have dramatically different values because the market is buying the specific coin, not simply the information printed on it. For anyone fortunate enough to own a 1943 Jefferson wartime silver nickel, preservation should be treated as part of the coin's value. Never polish it to make it shine, because polishing removes original surface characteristics and can leave permanent evidence of alteration. Handle the coin only by its edges, preferably over a soft surface, and store it in an inert holder designed for long-term numismatic preservation. Avoid PVC-containing plastic flips, rubber bands, tape, paper envelopes containing reactive chemicals, and damp locations where environmental damage may develop. A stable, dry environment is generally safer than constant changes in temperature and humidity. If the coin appears unusually sharp, carries an interesting error, has strong original luster, or seems to display a recognized variety, professional certification may be worth considering before selling or making major value assumptions. The 1943 wartime silver nickel remains a compelling reminder that even a small 5-cent piece can preserve a chapter of American history. Born from the material demands of a global war, struck in a temporary silver-based alloy, and identified by one of the most distinctive mint mark arrangements in modern U.S. coinage, it continues to attract collectors decades after its original purpose disappeared. Its true value depends not on wishful thinking, but on authenticity, condition, rarity, strike, recognized varieties, and what today's collectors are willing to pay for a particular certified example. Next coin, the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel, is one of those coins that can disappear into a handful of pocket change while carrying a collector story far more interesting than its ordinary appearance suggests. More than 647 million were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, so the date itself is certainly not rare in the traditional sense, yet exceptional examples have become highly collectible because the vast majority of these coins never survived with truly outstanding surfaces and an exceptionally sharp strike. That distinction is what turns an apparently common 5-cent piece into a serious numismatic challenge. The tiny letter P beside the date identifies Philadelphia, and for collectors, it marks an issue from an era when the mint was producing enormous quantities of coins for an active American economy. But quantity does not automatically translate into quality. Somewhere among the millions of pieces originally released were coins struck with unusually strong detail, brilliant original luster, and remarkably clean surfaces, and those are the examples that advanced Jefferson nickel specialists pursue. As this story unfolds, the factors that determine collector value will become clearer, including condition, originality, strike quality, the famous full steps designation, genuine mint errors, and professional authentication. Later, we will also examine what remarkable certified examples have actually sold for at auction, and why those results apply only to exceptional coins, not to every 1985 P nickel carrying the same date and mint mark. To understand why this coin exists, it helps to return to the United States of 1985, a period marked by economic expansion, changing technology, Cold War tensions, and an America increasingly shaped by consumer spending and modern industry. The United States Mint was not creating a commemorative rarity or a special historical issue when it struck the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel. This was a regular circulation coin, produced because the nation's economy needed vast quantities of small change for everyday transactions. Philadelphia struck an enormous 647,114,962 pieces, making this one of the most plentiful coins in the Jefferson nickel series. The P mint mark is particularly significant because Philadelphia had historically produced many earlier U.S. coins without a mint mark. But by 1980, the mint had begun placing the P on circulating coins struck there, with the Jefferson nickel becoming part of that modern identification system. The 1985 P issue, therefore, represents both continuity and change. The same familiar 5-cent denomination Americans had used for generations, now clearly identified as a Philadelphia product. These coins entered banks, cash registers, vending machines, grocery stores, restaurants, and countless everyday transactions. Most were handled without a second thought, accumulating contact marks and wear almost immediately. That circulation history is precisely why a coin from such a massive mintage can still become surprisingly difficult to find in elite preservation. Physically, the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel followed the standard specifications of the modern Jefferson 5-cent piece. It was struck in a copper-nickel alloy containing 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighed 5 grams, measured 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and had a plain edge. The design was the work of Felix Schlag, the artist whose Jefferson nickel design had first entered circulation in 1938. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson appears in left-facing profile, with Liberty and the date positioned around the portrait, and In God We Trust completing the familiar arrangement. The reverse presents Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, surrounded by inscriptions including EPLUBUSUNUM, United States of America, MONTICLLO, and 5 cents. The symbolism connects the nation's third president with his architectural legacy and with the broader idea of American history preserved in everyday money. By 1985, Schlag's design had already become one of the most recognizable images in U.S. coinage. Yet the artistic design alone does not explain collector competition. The crucial detail lies in how successfully the design was transferred from the dies onto each individual blank. During mass production, enormous numbers of planchets were fed into high-speed presses, and small differences in die pressure, die condition, planchet preparation, and metal flow could produce substantial differences in the sharpness of the finished coin. That is where the 1985 P issue becomes much more interesting to serious collectors. A normal uncirculated example may show Jefferson's portrait and the reverse design attractively, but advanced specialists often focus on the steps beneath Monticello's entrance. These horizontal lines can reveal whether the coin received an unusually complete strike. When the steps are sharply and sufficiently separated according to a grading services standards, the coin may qualify for a full steps designation. This distinction is extremely important because the 1985 P is common in ordinary grades but becomes significantly more challenging when exceptional preservation is combined with strong full steps. PCGS notes that the issue is fairly common in most grades, becomes scarce in MS65 full steps condition, and is very difficult to locate in higher full steps grades. That scarcity is created not by a low original mintage, but by the combination of survival and quality. A coin may have escaped circulation, yet still possess bag marks, weak steps, dull luster, or other characteristics that prevent it from reaching the highest levels of certification. Mint state grading evaluates whether a coin has wear, but the grade also reflects surface preservation, contact marks, luster, strike, and overall eye appeal. The difference between an ordinary mint state coin and an elite MS67 or MS67 plus specimen can therefore be dramatic. Luster is another part of the story that photographs and casual inspection can sometimes hide. An original 1985 nickel may display the cartwheel effect associated with fresh mint surfaces, but copper-nickel coins can tone over time and may develop shades ranging from subtle gold and champagne hues to gray, blue, or multicolored iridescence. Unlike copper cents, Jefferson nickels do not use the standard red, red-brown, and brown color classifications. Instead, collectors generally judge the originality and attractiveness of the surfaces, the strength and character of the luster, and whether the toning appears natural. Cleaning is particularly dangerous from a numismatic standpoint. A coin polished to create artificial brightness may lose the original surface texture collectors want to see, while abrasive cleaning can leave hairlines that remain visible under magnification. The most desirable examples often possess a combination that cannot be manufactured after the fact: strong original luster, minimal contact marks, a crisp strike, and natural eye appeal. This is why two 1985 nickels that look nearly identical from across a room can receive very different grades under professional examination. A common circulated example might have little numismatic premium, while a truly elite certified full-step specimen belongs to a completely different category of collector demand. In the middle of the market, prices can rise substantially for exceptional coins, but the four-figure results associated with this date belong to extraordinary pieces rather than ordinary examples. Varieties and errors add another layer of complexity, but they must be approached with caution. A genuine mint error is a product of the manufacturing process, not damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. Off-center strikes, clips, die caps, double strikes, struck-through pieces, and wrong planchet errors can all exist in the broader world of 1985 Jefferson nickels, but each example must be individually authenticated and evaluated. One verified example struck on a cent planchet and certified MS66, read by NGC, sold at a heritage auction for $1,610, demonstrating how a dramatic production error can create demand that an ordinary nickel does not possess. More recently, auction records have also documented unusual authenticated errors such as double strikes and die-cap strikes, but their values vary widely according to the visual impact and grade of the specific piece. Collectors should not assume that every odd-looking nickel is an error. Damage from coin-counting machines, corrosion, heat, alteration, or physical impact can imitate unusual mint-made characteristics. Die varieties should likewise be attributed through recognized references or professional services rather than guessed from blurry doubling or worn lettering. If a 1985 nickel appears unusually light, unusually shaped, dramatically off-center, or visibly struck more than once, accurate weight and measurements can provide useful clues, but professional authentication is the safest path before assigning significant value. Auction history reveals just how strongly conditioned rarity can transform the market for this otherwise common-date issue. A PCGS-certified MS67 full-steps example sold for $3,120 at a heritage auction in January 2018, and the same certified coin later brought $4,800 at Stack's Bowers in August 2021, illustrating how elite coins can attract serious competition when offered at major events. An even more exceptional PCGS-certified MS67 Plus full steps example achieved $9,066 at Heritage in January 2024, which PCGS lists as the auction record for the 1985 full steps issue. That extraordinary result must be understood in context. It was not the value of every 1985 nickel, nor even of every uncirculated 1985 nickel. It represented a coin certified at an elite grade with a highly desirable full steps designation. For collectors, this is the central lesson of the date. Mintage tells us how many coins were made, but condition rarity tells us how difficult it is to obtain a particular quality level today. A realistic value assessment must consider the exact certification, numerical grade, strike designation, originality, eye appeal, and current market demand. The fact that one elite example sold for more than $9,000 does not turn an ordinary coin from the same year into a four-figure rarity. For the collector who owns a 1985 P. Jefferson nickel, preservation can be just as important as discovery. The coin should be handled only by its edges and kept away from polishing compounds, harsh chemicals, adhesives, and PVC-containing storage materials. A stable, dry environment and inert archival quality holder offer much better long-term protection than loose storage in a drawer or pocket. If the coin appears to have unusually clean surfaces, exceptional luster, sharply defined Monticello steps, or a dramatic mint-made error, professional examination may be worthwhile before cleaning, spending, or selling it. Authentication also provides protection against altered coins, counterfeit errors, and misleading online listings. Check that the P mint mark is consistent with the genuine obverse design, confirm the standard weight and diameter when appropriate, and remember that an unusual appearance alone is not proof of rarity. Nearly every collector can find a 1985 P. Jefferson nickel. Finding one that combines elite preservation, superior strike quality, original surfaces, and a coveted full steps designation is an entirely different challenge. That is what gives this seemingly ordinary coin its long-term numismatic interest. It is a reminder that rarity is not always created in the year of production. Sometimes it is created decades later, as millions of ordinary coins disappear into circulation and only a tiny fraction survive in the extraordinary condition that serious collectors are willing to compete for. Last coin, the 1968 D. Jefferson nickel, looks ordinary enough to pass unnoticed across a counter, disappear into a jar, or spend decades at the bottom of a drawer. Yet experienced collectors know that this particular issue can become surprisingly interesting when examined closely. Begin with the date, then move to the small D mint mark beside it, then turn the coin over and study Monticello, not just the building as a whole, but the tiny architectural details that most people never think to inspect. More than 91 million examples were struck, so the 1968 D is not a classic low-mintage rarity, and that is precisely what makes the investigation more fascinating. Why would serious specialists pay close attention to a coin produced in such quantity? The answer lies in the difference between simply surviving and surviving exceptionally well. Later in this documentary, we will uncover what collectors look for in authenticated examples, why sharply struck pieces are dramatically more desirable than average specimens, and what verified auction results reveal about the small number of coins that reached elite condition. Our investigation begins in 1968, a year when the United States was emerging from the mid-1960s coin shortage, and the nation's coinage system was returning to a more familiar appearance. The mint had produced enormous quantities of coins during the previous several years, while demand for circulating money remained intense. During the shortage, the government had temporarily removed mint marks from most circulating coins dated from 1965 through 1967 in an effort to discourage speculative hoarding. In 1968, mint marks returned, and they were placed on the obverse. That makes the small d on this nickel historically significant. It identifies the coin as a product of the Denver Mint at a moment when the traditional mint mark system was being restored. Denver struck 91,227,880 Jefferson nickels bearing the 1968 date, a substantial number, although production was lower than the extraordinary output of the immediately preceding coin shortage years. These nickels were not created as souvenirs or special collector issues. They were made for everyday commerce during a turbulent year in American history, when the economy, politics, war in Vietnam, social change, and inflationary pressures were all shaping the national atmosphere. The coin was simply meant to circulate, but the way individual examples survived would eventually create the real collector story. Now place the coin under good light and examine its physical construction. 1968 D. Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighs 5 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a plain edge. Its design was created by Felix Schlag, whose Jefferson nickel had entered circulation in 1938. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson faces left, surrounded by the inscriptions in God we Trust and Liberty, with the date and the Denver Mint mark completing the design. The reverse shows Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, accompanied by EPLUBUSUNUM, United States of America, 5 cents, and the building's name. The design connected Jefferson's role in American political history with his intellectual and architectural legacy. Monticello was not chosen randomly. It represented the private world and creative identity of one of America's most complex founding fathers. But for a collector examining a 1968 D nickel today, the reverse is more than a historical image. It is a diagnostic tool. The lettering, roofline, columns, and especially the steps at the base of Monticello can reveal whether a particular coin was struck with unusual sharpness. Imagine following one freshly made 1968 D nickel from the coining press into the banking system. Copper nickel planchets were prepared to the proper specifications, fed into presses, and struck between hardened obverse and reverse dies. Under ideal conditions, metal flowed deeply into the recessed portions of the dies and reproduced the finest details of Jefferson and Monticello. In actual high-volume production, however, striking quality could vary. Dies wore, metal flow differed, and some design details did not emerge with the same sharpness on every coin. This is where experienced Jefferson nickel collectors slow down and look much more carefully. The steps of Monticello became the great dividing line. A nickel can be completely uncirculated and still have weak or interrupted steps. Coins displaying the sharply separated steps required for a full steps designation are much scarcer. NGC specifically describes the 1968 D as plentiful in gem condition, but very rare with either 5FS or 6FS, noting that the troublesome steps remained incomplete on most pieces despite improvements to the reverse hub. PCGS likewise describes the ordinary issue as common while emphasizing that the date becomes an extreme rarity with full steps. That difference is the heart of the investigation. Millions were made, many survived, but comparatively few combined outstanding preservation with an exceptional strike. Condition becomes even more important once we examine what happened after these nickels left the mint. Most entered circulation and immediately began acquiring the evidence of everyday use. The highest points of Jefferson's portrait could gradually lose detail, while Monticello's steps and architectural lines softened. Contact with other coins produced nicks and abrasions, and years in pockets, cash drawers, vending machines, and coin jars could dull the original mint luster. Professional grading services distinguish circulated pieces from mint state coins, but the absence of wear is only the beginning of the evaluation. Surface preservation, contact marks, strike, luster, and eye appeal all matter. An MS-63 example can be uncirculated yet noticeably marked, while an MS-66 or finer coin must display substantially cleaner and more attractive surfaces. Original luster is particularly important because an untouched coin can preserve the reflective texture created during striking. Jefferson nickels do not use copper color designations such as red, red-brown, and brown. Instead, collectors consider whether the surfaces retain original brilliance or attractive natural tunning. A nickel with soft gray, golden, blue, or subtly multicolored tunning may be desirable when the appearance is natural and appealing, while harsh cleaning, polishing, or artificial alteration can permanently reduce collector interest. This is also the stage of the investigation where unusual varieties and errors must be separated from ordinary damage. NGC notes that minor double-die obverse varieties and several repunched mint mark varieties are known for the 1968 D, although these have not developed the same broad collector following as major varieties in some other US series. That means magnification can be useful. But a blurry-looking letter or apparent doubling should never automatically be called a rare variety. Genuine die doubling must be distinguished from machine doubling, strike movement, wear, or post-mint damage. The same caution applies to errors. A legitimate off-center strike, clipped planchet, double strike, die cap error, or wrong planchet piece can be collectible, but only if the unusual feature was created during the mint's production process and can be authenticated. Damage caused by heat, corrosion, grinding, machinery, or alteration after the coin entered circulation is not a mint error. When investigating a suspicious 1968 D nickel, experienced collectors compare weight, diameter, lettering, edge characteristics, design alignment, and the overall fabric of the surfaces. A precise scale can help identify a wrong planchet possibility, while professional attribution may be necessary for varieties. Counterfeit or altered pieces should also be considered whenever an alleged rarity seems too dramatic or convenient. The safest approach is to authenticate first and assign value second. Only after understanding all of those distinctions does the value picture make sense. A normal circulated 1968 D nickel is generally a common coin rather than a four-figure treasure, and even attractive ordinary mint state examples are far more available than the most exceptional pieces. The market changes sharply when the coin reaches extreme condition or possesses a recognized strike designation. PCGS records an auction result of $1,140 for a certified MS-68 example sold by Heritage Auctions in September 2022. That is a verified result for a specific elite-grade coin, not a general price for every nickel of this date. PCGS also identifies the 1968D as a coin that becomes dramatically more difficult when full steps are required, while NGC characterizes 5FS and 6FS examples as very rare. For that reason, an authenticated coin that combines exceptional surfaces, strong original luster, superior eye appeal, and a rare full steps designation can enter a much more competitive segment of the market. Depending on the exact certification, rarity, and auction circumstances, serious collectors may be willing to pursue elite examples in the low four-figure range, while ordinary pieces remain far below that level. The lesson is simple but crucial. The value belongs to the specific authenticated coin and its qualities, not merely to the date 1968, and the letter D. The final part of the investigation concerns preservation and long-term collectability. If you find a 1968 D nickel with unusually clean surfaces, sharp lettering, strong luster, or remarkably complete Monticello steps, resist the temptation to polish it. Cleaning can destroy original surface characteristics that collectors and grading services want to see. Handle the coin by its edges, store it in an inert archival quality holder, and avoid PVC containing plastic, tape, rubber bands, moisture, and reactive materials. If the coin appears to show a significant variety, dramatic error, or elite condition, professional authentication can provide an informed opinion on genuineness and grade before any major buying or selling decision is made. The 1968 D Jefferson nickel remains historically important not because every surviving example is rare, but because it captures a fascinating moment when mint marks returned after the coin shortage and condition rarity became far more important than original production numbers. It teaches collectors to look beyond the date, beyond the denomination, and beyond the assumption that a common coin cannot become a difficult collectible. In this investigation, the smallest details tell the biggest story. The D beside the date, the untouched luster, the marks, or lack of them, on the surfaces, and those tiny steps beneath Monticello that can transform an ordinary-looking 5-cent coin into an object of serious numismatic competition.